related, but more likely, to a very nice increase in crop yield with no further inputs into the agricultural system.
As the efficiency with which plants utilize water increases in the years ahead as the CO2 content rises, plants will obviously be able to grow and survive in areas where they currently cannot because of a lack of water. That means that you should see a tremendous redistribution of plants on the face of the earth. In very general terms, you should see a real greening of the desert. You should see grasses and small shrubs moving out onto areas where they could not live and survive and reproduce before. Then there should also be a tendency for bushes and shrubs to grow where only grasses have grown in the past. And of course, forests should greatly expand their ranges.
Trees account for about 3/4 of all photosynthesis done by land plants and 2/3 of all photosynthesis done globally. What effect will a doubling of CO2 have on them? Part of the answer comes from an experiment being conducted with sour orange trees, and another part from bristlecone pines, the oldest living organisms in the world.
We're here at 11,000 feet in the White Mountains of eastern California to discuss the growth of bristlecone pine. It has shown some phenomenal increases in the past 100 years or so that we can't attribute to temperature or to precipitation. We think that the increasing carbon dioxide may have had a very important effect on this growth. Now, the bristlecone pine is very important in this respect, and especially at these elevations, because it's the only natural laboratory where we've seen this effect. One of the very important points that must be understood and is crucial to this story is that we see a tremendous growth spurt in the past 100 or so years that we have not seen in the past few thousand years in these trees. Now, this corresponds precisely with the tremendous increases in carbon dioxide that are even now measured from Mauna Loa in Hawaii and from ice cores and from other places.
The experiment that we have been conducting here for 4 years deals with growing sour orange trees under normal conditions of atmospheric CO2 concentration, and then where the CO2 content of the air has been enriched to an approximate doubling, not quite a doubling of the current concentration. And we have followed these trees, as I said, for about 4 years now, and the enriched trees have almost tripled their biomass. That is, they have grown approximately 3 times faster than the trees growing in normal air. Now, this response is so incredible. It suggests that were the CO2 content of the atmosphere to double, the growth rates of Earth's trees would triple.
Atmospheric carbon dioxide levels have risen from approximately 290 parts per million in 1870 to 360 parts per million in 1996. There's also little question that the increase is principally from burning fossil fuels. What has been ignored is that crop yields per acre have significantly increased during this period. In some countries, the yields per acre have doubled since World War II. In 1870, the world population was 1.5 billion. Today, it has increased to 5.5 billion, yet the world has surplus food supply. Farmers are subsidized to limit food production. Although much credit is given to modern farming methods, tree ring studies show a similar increase. Therefore, the increase in the atmospheric CO2 must be partly responsible.
We grew a wheat crop, 2 varieties of wheat, across the CO2 gradient from well below what it was in pre-industrial times up to what it is now. And we found that both of those varieties increased their yield by a factor of 3.
Undoubtedly, there has been already a considerable increase in the yields that are coming from the fields because of the CO2 enrichment that's in the atmosphere.
We know from historical records and from personal observations that crop productivity has increased dramatically, especially since World War II. 3, 4, 5 times more cotton, corn, wheat, soybeans, rice. So it makes sense that the 30% increase in CO2 that we've experienced since pre-industrial time should have increased crop growth.
Vice President Al Gore is well aware of these experiments. He has attempted to stop and discredit all the work being done by the research scientists in the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and to stop future publications which are favorable to CO2. A Wall Street Journal editorial of May the 25th, 1993, describes the roundtables where Senator Gore used his chairmanship of a key Senate subcommittee to intimidate skeptical researchers and promote a phony image of scientific unanimity on the global warming theory. Senator Gore was particularly outraged by a program sponsored by Western Fuels, much of which you have just viewed, which shows higher levels of CO2 in the atmosphere to be beneficial. The editorial states, "The research community still buzzes over his flaying of Sherwood Idso, an Agriculture Department research physicist. He was dragged before Mr. Gore's subcommittee and accused of being a shield for earth-raping coal companies." Vice President Gore continues to attack scientists who oppose his views.
A doubling of the CO2 content of the atmosphere will produce a tremendous greening of planet Earth.
During 1998, Vice President Gore criticized these research scientists on a TV interview, calling it junk science. In rebuttal, Bill O'Keefe with the Global Climate Coalition responded, "I think it's unfortunate that someone who holds the second highest office in this nation would make these kinds of scandalous charges. He's impugning the integrity of a lot of scientists at prestigious universities." Gore has funneled many billions of taxpayers' dollars to scientists and universities who are willing to promote his global warming ideas, and withheld funds from those who offer objections. He has used the power of his position and the pressure of environmental groups to stifle debate in the media. Al Gore filled key government jobs with radical environmentalists, especially in the Interior Department and the EPA. Scientific data shows that an increase of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is beneficial. The theory of global warming is a myth. Reduction of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, as called for by the Kyoto Accord, would be a costly mistake which could lower standards of living worldwide. The documentary, which you have just viewed, was released in 1998. This second part continues to follow the global warming debate for the next 10 years. Al Gore was using his position as senator to promote the global warming idea, and even more so after he became vice president in 1993. During his tenure as vice president, he strongly supported the Kyoto Protocol proposed at the United Nations Convention. But despite his best efforts, the United States is the only major country which has refused to ratify the treaty. In 2006, he produced the film featuring himself entitled An Inconvenient Truth. This was shown worldwide, leading many people to believe that his predictions of disaster from global warming were true. Global warming was declared to be the result of greenhouse gases from the burning of fossil fuel. The most prominent greenhouse gas in the atmosphere affecting the temperature is water vapor. Greenhouse advocates choose to ignore water because it is obviously beneficial to life. Other than water, carbon dioxide is the only greenhouse gas of sufficient volume in the atmosphere to be measured. So it became the target of the Kyoto Protocol. The best kept secret of the global warming advocates is the extremely small amount of carbon dioxide in the Earth's atmosphere. Their strongest argument is that the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere has increased 35%. It was 270 parts per million 200 years ago. Today it's about 370 parts per million. That's scary, but you notice the global warmers measure CO2 in parts per million, but they measure the other major gases in percentages. Now, why is this? To have a level playing field, let's show all the atmospheric gases in percent.
Nitrogen is 76%.